All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure, of course, that is actually the case. Over on Rumble, we have to reload it in 10 to 15 seconds and make do. But I see, I don't see any Rumble rants. That could be a bad sign. I think a lot of people are sleeping in because, of course, yesterday was Christmas Day. Some people will be hungover, Take some hair of the dog. We'll make sure that we're actually live here. Supposedly we're live. Okay, we are live on Rumble. Excellent. Let's make sure our tabs work. We've got some news to cover today. You might hear some baby noises in the background. She's upstairs at the moment doing snuggly things, but we'll get right into the news here. Just a second. Jesus Christ. I'll be talking about some legacy media propaganda, that's for sure. That's the main news of the day. Of course, because yesterday was Christmas and it was a weekend, slow news day, probably pick up tomorrow, generally speaking. There's not so much to talk about. I've only got 7 tabs open here, and that's like the minimum that I normally use. But we do have some epic wins to take here. We have some funny things to talk about, not all of which are serious, of course. So don't worry. This is also an amusing show for everybody. Guybrush Threepwood, what did Santa bring everyone for Christmas? I got some really great snacks that Liz gave me. She got, I don't know, I can't remember the name of the store, but there's one, they have all sorts of different like weird foods and stuff like that. And she got me some chips. Apparently in Scandinavia, when they make like potato chips, they make them long and thin. And they taste really good. The taste is definitely on point. I'm going to be going back to that place in the next couple of days to get some more and checking out all the other weird shit that they apparently have. I want weird foods. I don't want normal foods. The weirder, the better. I want to cook Indian food, but I'm never allowed to because it's too spicy. We'll soon see something about that, my friend. I don't see any Rumble rants coming through. I got to reload it again. I don't even see a live counter over on Rumble. I think we might be having technical difficulties on Rumble at the moment, unfortunately. We'll, please stand by. Are we not live on Rumble? I put in the new info. I don't know that we're live on Rumble. Can somebody over watching on YouTube please check the Rumble live stream from the Twitter post that I make and see if it's actually live? Jesus Christ, did someone call my name? Lots of people the other day, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm hoping we're not having problems on Rumble. I think we are, though. We were live there for a second. I know I saw myself speaking. Let me check this really quickly. Let me see what the fuck is going on here. I see you, but no other rants. You are live. Okay, I am. Just a sec. Yeah, we are live on Rumble. I do see Rumble rants now. For some reason, I had to close out the other tab and open a new one. I don't know exactly what's happening there, but apparently people can see me. Not a banned account. Family pushed for me to get the ouchie this Christmas. Yeah, you should definitely say no to such suggestions. It's working. Yeah, I know it's working live on Rumble. It is working, but I had to close out the other tab. Refreshing it for some reason wasn't working. I don't know what's going on. I still can't see the live view count, like the number of people that are watching. They must be doing an update or something. Doubt Shadow, hungover, present und accounted for, Herr Sticks Hexenhammer. I'm in Buffalo. We got our shit pushed in. The National Guard couldn't get to my house to bring me to work at the hospital. Excited to move. Yes, Buffalo and surrounding areas got hammered with regards to the winter storm, which, by the way, would totally not have happened if people weren't using SUVs and coal power plants. Yeah. It's not like there's that Leonard Nimoy bit back in the middle of the 1970s talking about the coming ice age and one of the winter storms they had with the lake effect there back literally over a half a century ago. By the way, if you search for that, you actually have to go out of your way to find it. The Ice Age, the new Ice Age with Leonard Nimoy, In Search of, 1976 or 7. Ram and Jam, French toast is best roast. I love French toast, and I make it proper, by the way. Regis Philbin's scrotum. I can't go without the spice. Gotta acclimate her to real food. Merry Clankmas and Happy New Year. I like to put curry in a lot of things. Grand masala. I like a lot of seasoning. But, when I was a kid, no shade on my parents, but, it was New England cooking. New England cooking tends to be a bit on the bland side. We will be talking about a list of the best food in the world by nation, actually, at the end of this stream. Oh boy, what a goddamn doozy. It makes me want to have a heart attack just reading it. Padre speaks. All right, time for Christmas menu flex. This house had smoked cinnamon buns to start. Turkey, double smoked ham, baked mac and cheese. Mac and cheese is good. Sprouts, corn, and mashed spuds. Dessert was bread pudding, apple cake, and cheesecake. I would choose the bread pudding myself. Oh, bread pudding is great. Kind of similar to French toast when you think about it, actually, recipe-wise. Like a soggy French toast that's been turned into a pudding. Maxwell Schools, hope you had a Merry Christmas, Sticks. Did you see the recent Christmas ad Putin made where he trolled woke culture? No, I didn't see that. I have to look it up. Anyway, we'll start right up here with the news. Migrants from Texas dropped off outside VP Harris's home on freezing Christmas Eve. Now, I talked about this morning. I'll go through the subtitle. The stunt appears to be the latest example of an effort by officials in the Republican-led states busing migrants to liberal strongholds. The ones that have literally declared themselves sanctuary cities and states, openly proclaiming that they want to, come all ye faithful, give us your huddled masses, etc., et cetera, et cetera. So why not go there? You want them. You've openly proclaimed that you have no problem with people illegally in the United States or semi-legally, depending on their particular origin, their status. You've said that you want them there. Why not bust them in? I noticed that they're not lifting a hand to bust them in themselves. They're not freeing up any resources in Chicago, New York City, DC, and California to hire chartered buses to bring people into their states, even though they claim that they want them so much. So that's point number one. Point number two. And I talked about this earlier. I find it real damning that the legacy media is invoking the Arctic weather. It's so cold right now. Think of all these poor people in these, nice heated buses that are making their way to DC, which, after all, DC is halfway up the eastern seaboard. It's not exactly an Arctic climate. Yes, you've got Arctic weather right now in much of the United States. It's probably going to warm back up to the 50s and 60s over the next couple of days in that particular area. It's basically a temperate swamp. It's not exactly New York City or Chicago. Originally, Texas was going to send them to New York City. I think they reconsidered when they saw the weather conditions and actually decided to spare them in order to send them to Kamala Harris's home. Here's my problem. We have a legacy media, a political establishment that is condemning this and saying, number one, it's trafficking, which, the Biden administration has been doing it for a couple of years. But when a state does it, it's a big problem. That's number one. Number two, these people are cold. They're tired and hungry. And it's Christmas Eve. How dare you? Think about all of the impoverished families and homeless people around the United States who are full-on citizens and residents. Millions of them, quite literally, who have the heat turned off and 5 quilts on the goddamn bed. If they're lucky. If they're unlucky, they're living under an overpass right now, or they're in a homeless shelter if they can find one that'll take them. What would you tell them? I would rather proffer aid and help to American citizens over people who are not legally due to even be in the country. And in most cases, these people are not technically migrants. They're not asylum seekers. They are illegal aliens. That is what they are. I don't hate them. I don't have any problem with them. But they've decided to leave their tropical climate in order to come to the United States. They voluntarily got on buses in Texas. They were not forced. They were effectively offered, hey, look, we can relocate you to an area that has proper facilities. They have stated they are a sanctuary city. We can send you there. You and or your family can go. and we will provide the ticket. We'll pay for it for you. Here's a gift basket and a blanket. Get on the bus and you can go. These people were not forced into these buses in any way, shape, or form. That's been discredited long ago. And they decided to go originally to New York City, although now DC. Basically, the only problem is that if you pulled a bait and switch and said you're going to the Big Apple, and instead you have to go to the Big Crapple, which is DC, I guess that maybe they could file a suit if they were lawful residents or citizens anyway. Under this particular circumstance, probably not going to happen. And Kamala is the border czar. They were dropped off a block from her home. Why don't they just go into her home and take one of her 7 spare bedrooms, because she spends very little time actually at her house at all? Why don't they just free up her room? I'm sure her kitchen alone could probably accommodate 10 people. You could put all 140 of these individuals in Kamala Harris's home with room to spare, probably. But they're NIMBYists. They want all of the economic migrants and illegals in the country, but they don't want them in their communities. We saw this in Martha's Vineyard. By the way, when are you going to send another plane load of people to Martha's Vineyard, DeSantis? It was ballsy. I want you to do it again, preferably over and over again. Adam THM. Hope you and your family had a good holiday, Sticks. If you haven't, you need to try barley sausage. It goes good with ketchup, but I like it in a soup. Never heard of it, but I'll look it up. And yes, very good holiday. Amasang, New York City and Chicago seems swampy enough. Yeah, but they're also on the colder side, so they decided to put them in more south. You know, DC is going to warm up quicker and be warm longer. That makes sense. You know, the illegals there will be less lawless than the politicians. Why don't we just overrun all of DC with 1 million illegal immigrants? Because it'll improve the city. It'll probably have less crime. Richard III, my family was terrified of the coof. Now we're hugging again at Christmas. I think the fear is waning. Sad that they were terrified to begin with, but yeah, improvement. Not a bad account. If the USA goes to war on Russia, will women be drafted? Apparently they have to be under current US doctrine. Thankfully, that's not going to happen. If there's a war, it'll be a short one. It'll involve a few thousand missiles and most people in both countries dying. Fire down below. Did you watch the Randall Carlson video I sent you via Twitter about the Great Pyramid being the same size as the Earth? If so, your thoughts? I think I did see that. I didn't watch the full video. I'll dig back through and I'll check it out. You got to realize when you have a kid and, you know, my kind of schedule, you don't have as much time, unfortunately, to watch videos. I have to fucking make them. Michael LaRusso, Black Sabbath with Ozzy or Dio? I will take Ozzy, solo or in Black Sabbath. Generella, toured the border for my job last year. Border Patrol processes then, gives them temporary legal status, sends them anywhere they want to go. The Biden regime simply completes the global cartel's circle. Yeah, unfortunately, that was another update that I gave a long time ago, which is they looked into it. And they found that up to 1/3 of all minors that were brought into the country and then handed over to a legal guardian or relative, speculatively, had disappeared, unfortunately. They're no longer getting updates on their whereabouts or their status, which means that they're slaves. Yep, a full 1/3 of all of the minors brought into the United States are probably being pimped out or worked to death at the moment. This is virtuous, according to the progressives. Not a bad account. Where can I get a Pip-Boy for the coming world? They had like collectible Pip-Boys when Fallout 4 was released. I thought about getting one at the time, but then I figured, well, I've got better things to do. Anthony Mendoza, Coke or Pepsi, Sticks? I need to know. I don't drink soda. On the very rare occasion, I think I've had soda 3 times in the last half decade, maximum overall. And it's always been Dr. Pepper, actually. I can't remember whether Coke or Pepsi owns them. Fubar 2020, heard a judge threw out Lake's lawsuit. Yeah, that was predictable. We already covered that in a new tech exclusive. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, keep in mind to follow me on BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, or Minds, and you will get exclusive content every single day. Aaron Bennett, if the DOJ is insane enough to indict Trump before 2024, do you think that it will boost Trump's chances winning the presidency? Yeah, I do, actually. I am not black-pilled. Speaking of Trump, next news story. Trump Christmas message, the USA is dying from within. There are so many goddamn hot takes on what Donald Trump said, the night before Christmas. And I think, well, actually, it's not on here. How very sad. Yeah, the basic gist was Merry Christmas to everyone, including the corrupt FBI agents, the corrupt CIA, the corrupt DOJ, etc. You can look it up on Truth Social. In fact, I might be able to link to it from here. Oh, yes, we've got it verbatim. Donald Trump. This is on Truth Social, which really, Donald, you do need to return to Twitter. Just to be clear, that is one mistake you are currently making. On this very cold but beautiful Christmas day, look at our nation now on the southern border compared to only a short time ago during the Trump administration. We had the most secure border in our history versus the horror show that is happening now. With record-setting numbers of people, many of them hardened criminals, including killers, human traffickers, and drug dealers pouring into our country at the rate of likes which we have never seen before. The USA is dying from within. I don't see anything particularly incorrect about what he's posting. By the way, that's a follow-up. He did also have another one where he talks about the FBI and other groups. He's not wrong. It's just that the whole idea is, well, it's Christmas, you're not allowed to be negative. Well, what he correctly identifies is that for a lot of Americans, Christmas has become less positive than before because of Bidenomics, because of the broken border system, because of our shit diplomacy that's been conducted under Biden's stewardship. There is nothing wrong with this. Venting on Christmas, if he did it a day earlier and he said, well, happy Festivus, you would call it a joke. Well, I mean, for him, they wouldn't, but for Rand Paul, they do it for him. Really, though, even if Donald Trump came out and said, a Merry Christmas to all and a Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, I love you all. This is a time for being with your family. So, sit down, enjoy a good meal. My blessings to all, praise Jesus, or something like that. Let's say that was Trump's Christmas message. What would the legacy media do? Those outlets that didn't ignore him would hyperanalyze everything he said. They would focus on the use of Christmas as being politically incorrect. Or they would say, well, how dare he bless people's holidays when he wants people to be out in the cold like Greg Abbott does? How dare he? How dare he talk about redemption or family togetherness? His family's broken and they're all a bunch of weirdos. They would go off on him. He knows this. And so he's not going to try to be nice with his Christmas message. What fucking point is there to be nice? There is none. He's not going to get any credit for it. He might as well just double down. Not a banned account. How soon can we hope for Trump to be perp walked? If they're crazy enough to do that, probably over the course of the next year. My thought is, of course, they're probably not that goddamn mental. My thought is that they're going to hold it over his heads in hopes of triggering a primary battle. And if they fail to do that or it fails to stop him, then they'll hold it over his heads in the general. LS420 Stoner. One thing I've been noticing is all the Russia fanboys seem to despise modern society. Anything LGBT, etc. Your thoughts on these West haters, please. That's true. There's a big TradCon group of people who are more pro-Russia. What I would say is, as a person who has a more balanced view, and I speak only for myself, I have no problem with people who are gay, lesbian, etc. I don't care, haven't cared for a very long time. I like modern society and I like liberalism. I wish the United States were more close to actual classical liberalism as opposed to corporate NSDAP style bullshit right now. That being said, you can recognize that Russia's invasion is a negative thing, and you can feel sorry for the Ukrainian people, as I do, while also understanding Zelensky is not the Messiah. Ukraine is also a corrupt state. And if they had a comparable manpower and military capability, might very well act in the same manner. I am very worried that what we're doing right now by pumping the area full of money and weapons is we're setting the stage for the next Mujahideen, effectively. I'm very worried about that. I think it's going to bite us in the ass in the future. Aspartame brain tumor. With Canada's new euthanasia laws, do you think Scott Adams has any plans to move? Maybe. Joe Biden, gas is under $3 a gallon. I deserve a thank you. Now, I thought it was Russia that determined our gas prices. I heard all about it earlier this year. Opinionated junkie. Is there racist people on the right like left hiding it? Oh, yeah, there's plenty of right-wingers that are racist. And left-wingers, too. Racism doesn't play political favorites. Richard Spencer basically sounds like Bernie Sanders every other day. So, but he still has racialistic views. Kill 3000, seeing who posted on Twitter, only Ukraine fans and leftists lost power in Texas this weekend, which really confuses me as to why they wanted the migrants to stay here and not be carted off to bright, warm, walkable DC. Yeah, it's like it wasn't cold down along the southern border. I mean, less so, admittedly, but, they've got full-on shelters and shit like that, things that U.S. citizens aren't privy to. Empty hotels that have been overrun, etc. They've been requisitioned. They've been effectively nationalized for the purpose of finding these people temporary shelter. There are a lot of Americans who would love to have that boon, to get a hot shower and a hot meal. Victoria Winter. Recall Mitch McConnell, Graham, and Romney. Also Cornyn, Collins, Murkowski, and many others. Chuck Flea, neocon people are in Dem Party waiting for old status quo. Now, there are still plenty of Republican neocons. The Bush family, they haven't switched parties. They've just shown their full ideology that I've been warning about for years. These people all party together. They get on the Senate floor, the House floor, whatever, and they pretend to hate each other. And they say, well, these goddamn Democrats, they're going to tax you up the ass. Well, these nutty Republicans, they want your kids to die in a school shooting. At the end of the day, they hammer out a pork barrel compromise, and then they go to their parties in the back room and they snort coke together. Madison Cawthorn literally got shit canned by his own fucking party, by none other than Kevin McCarthy himself, for pointing this fact out. Anyway, after that little mini rant. The Vancouver Times reporting, former Twitter CEO Parag Agrawal arrested for child porn. You see, the problem is that the story is completely bullshit and this is a satire site. To be clear, when people are alluding to the VancouverTimes.org article with regards to Parag Agrawal, talked about it this morning, I will reiterate for people in brief here. That is literally fake news. And I think I know what the point is. I think it's twofold. Number one, a distraction from the Twitter files, Twittergate, etc. To distract from Agrawal's own culpability in allowing the FBI to come in and pressure the company to censor law-abiding U.S. users, you dangle something over their heads that distracts the conversation among those people that are interested in the topic. This has been done before, many, many, many times. A corporation is suffering some sort of problem. They're being exposed. They poisoned a bunch of kids accidentally. They dump toxic waste. What do? You take to social media, you hijack the algorithm involved with the hashtags, the search terms that are involved with your company, and then you have plant accounts, that you've yourself field, spread some crazy salacious rumor that sounds a lot more exciting. You have to make it plausible, otherwise it falls flat. That gets spread alongside the actual scandal and distracts people from what's going on in hopes that they won't report on the real news. This happened with 9/11. People were deliberately distracted by the U.S. government away from the fact that the Saudi involvement was covered up, away from the fact that it was misused to start the war in Iraq a year later, et cetera, et cetera. That was the real scandal. Plausible speculations with regards to 9/11 behind. And a lot of people got distracted by nukes in the basement and shit like that. Well, they put nuclear weapons in the basement. Not only did they allow it to happen, they actually orchestrated it. Oh, the hijackers are still alive in a CIA detention facility. All of the really, really salacious sounding things were bullshit, but they sounded a lot more exciting than, hey, the government is simply covering up who actually orchestrated this because of oil revenue. And that was really the long and short of it. That's what happened. We see the same thing here. They are worried about the Twitter files. They're worried about Twittergate, the FBI's culpability in using taxpayer money to censor law-abiding U.S. citizens. The CIA was involved. We know that now, or at least it's speculated conceivably, among other things. And a U.S. tech firm allowed this. And it goes further than that firm. It goes to Meta, goes to YouTube/Google, et cetera, et cetera. They try to cover it up by putting out a story that will distract people. So it sounds really good. Oh, wow, you mean the man that ignored all of the illicit imagery that was on the site prior to Elon Musk has been busted? Oh, wow, that's really great stuff. Let me send it to my favorite content creators. But it's not real. It's plausible. It's been designed to be plausible for a reason so that it spreads around more easily. Number two, beyond that, they're really hoping that Elon Musk retweets this. This is absolutely their end goal. If they had one golden goose that they could possibly catch, it would be Elon Musk seeing this story and retweeting it. Or someone close to him, Ian Miles Cheong, who is speaking with Elon apparently regularly, Barry Weiss, Schellenberger, and any of them, Matt Taibbi, any of these other people directly associated with what has become the de facto content creator inner circle of Elon Musk, retweeting this or talking about it. That's exactly, because then they can write a hit piece. I guarantee you that's what they want to do with this. This was designed, if not originally as anything other than satire, has become a larger thing. I have a feeling that this was posted as satire first and foremost, but then people realized, hey, if we can astroturf this enough, we can hijack the algorithm and maybe we can goddamn destroy Elon Musk with a defamation suit. That's what they're hoping for. It destroys the overall argumentative credibility of people who are looking at the Twitter files themselves because they're getting distracted. That's basically what's happening here. Chuck Flea, I mean the voters. Yeah, the voters shouldn't wait for the status quo because the status quo sucks dick. Dark World XL, 2 questions. Any news on Kari Lake's lawsuit? If you had to learn a trade, which one would you learn first and which one would you avoid? Trade. Well, as first, with regards to Kari Lake's lawsuit, it's been tossed aside. The best thing she can do now is continue to appeal in order to present evidence. It was never going to lead to an overturn of the election results or anything like that. What she's doing right now is an exposure campaign. In that sense, she wins. It's working. What trade would I learn? If landscaping is a trade, maybe that, because I'd get to work with plants, I suppose. I would avoid anything that was highly hazardous, like working with, smelting, machines, vulcanizers and stuff like that. Anything that's like you might randomly get vaporized. I think I'd probably ignore those ones. No, thank you. I'd rather not be a well-done steak. I like my steak medium rare. M-Stealth GT3. Happy Yule sticks, lady sticks, and bundle of sticks. Well, thank you. Happy Yule to you too. Killeroy was here. Happy Boxing Day from the US where it doesn't exist. Hope you guys had a good Sticksmas. Getting ready to start learning to use my new smoker. Best Christmas gift ever. Clank. Excellent. Smoke some cheese. Some hickory. Ben Dover. American food. Blah. We will talk about cuisine. Ozzy's Robots. Hey, Sticks. It's the giving season, so I'm giving out a rare vintage robot worth $600 to $800. You know where to send interested clankers. Happy New Year. All right, I guess Ozzy's Robots is giving out a vintage robot of some sort. Can, I guess, hit him up. Check his shit out, man. Yeah, so the Agrawal story, to be clear, he has not been detained or arrested for illicit images of children. It's too conveniently written. And the fact is that when you have an article that says, well, the FBI detained someone that they were working with for several years, don't you think that's a tell that the story might be bogus? And that's the case. It's a bogus story. He might be into weird shit, but at this particular time, he's not arrested, he's not detained, and we have no evidence of it. We do have a mountain of evidence for other wrongdoings for Parag Agrawal, which is exactly what this story seeks to distract from. Let other people know. Make sure to inform them. Don't assume that they're a federal agent. Assume that they are just ignorant and attempt to correct them. If they refuse to be corrected, then they might glow in the dark. Next news story. Democrats and Republicans agree on wasting taxpayer dollars. The $1.7 billion Omnibus bill, they mean trillion, not billion to be clear. There's a little typo there on the Spectator. Is a pork-laden Christmas miracle. And they go down through some of the spending in here and like, what was it? Funds appropriated to the Internal Revenue Service in this act may be used to provide passenger carrier transportation and protection between the Commissioner of Internal Revenue's residence and place of employment. Translation, a chauffeur for the IRS commissioner. That one must be a real point of pride for the Senate Republicans. They're always looking out for the little guy. Yeah, after stubbornly planting their feet and pretending that they didn't want to expand the IRS, they are literally giving limousine services and security to the commissioner of the IRS. Just to be clear about their priorities. Of course, Mitch McConnell a few days ago came out and said, well, the top priority for my constituents has to do with funding Ukraine. Yes, that's exactly what people wanted to prioritize. When people voted for Republicans in the midterms, it was to expand the IRS and give $45 billion to the Ukrainians. That's all that they cared about. Those conservatives, they're really fucking stupid, apparently. Some of them are, just to be clear. And here's my point about this. Here's my analysis. This is exactly why Donald Trump won in 2016. Just to be clear about the trajectory of U.S. politics, the uniparty Republicans have gone back completely to business as usual, in the sense that they want to do the big spending on bullshit, effectively, pretending to oppose the the liberal wing of the Democratic Party, pretending to have a problem with them and not be basically bosom buddies with them. And they're trying to go back to the old Jeb Bush, John McCain, Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney fucking uniparty thing, because that's how they make their money. They suffered for several years under Donald Trump because they were less able to do that. And they were really, really sad, which is what led to the last midterms. And Hong Kong totally had no impact on the 2020 election, by the way. Anyway, this is exactly why MAGA rose up. The people that are represented supposedly by a vast plurality of politicians, especially in the House, to a lesser degree the Senate, presidency, etc., revolted against the status quo because they wanted to break the toys. They specifically did not want a $1.7 trillion bill to cause more inflation, just punting, by the way, through September of next year. It's not even a full-on year-long budget, which gives billions and billions to foreign entities, billions and billions to bureaus, and ultimately is not going to trickle down to anything improving for the average person at a time when we're in economic crisis. This is exactly the same scenario economically, socially, politically, in the partisan sense. Literally everything you see in the Omnibus bill is a microcosm of the situation in 2013 through 15 that led to MAGA's uprising. But remember, Trump is totally done for. He's become boring and he's not viable. He's got too much baggage. Oh, I beg to differ. I think that he's the heir apparent at the moment for another term. Love him to go full Grover Cleveland because they'd be even more frenetic the second time around. Keep in mind that Mitch McConnell brags about this bill. McCarthy is trying to throw McConnell under the bus right now because it's so fucking bad. Richard III, you're wrong, Sticks. It wasn't nukes. It was invisible laser beams fired from a naval frigate that brought down WTC, and the planes were holograms. Yes, I've heard of the holographic plane thing as well. You know, the theories on that particular day range from the reasonably plausible, like planted charges or whatever, to the outright goddamn insane, again, like nukes in the basement. How did that avoid detection by any of the radiation detectors within a 100-mile radius? Because nothing went off. I would think that those trace remains would have informed somebody that something was terribly wrong. Holographic planes in 2001? Yeah, that technology totally existed at that time. Louise at GM. Hey, Sticks, happy holidays for you and the Clankers. Can we get a shout out for our game Agrawal on Steam? We have released the fishing update. Okay, so we have a game called Agrawal on Steam, and you can check it out at your leisure. Consider that a shout-out. Kenneth Turner, U.S. has entered Weimar Republic mode. I don't think we're there yet. I think Europe's getting closer to it quicker than the United States. There's still hope in the U.S. because you still have a populist element, in other words. There is still a chance for the kind of reform that you need to stave off literal extremists. I don't mean like MAGA. MAGA's extreme. No, it's not. MAGA is basically 80s Reaganism. Not only is it not extreme, it's the long-term norm throughout most of the Cold War. If anything's extreme, it's the neo-lib, neocon corporatism that we've seen in the wake of second-term Ronald Reagan. It's basically, well, now that the Cold War is over, we're going to settle into globalism, and we're just going to sort of use diplomacy and money in order to influence people. But it hasn't worked. It's been an abysmal failure. It hasn't brought China out of authoritarianism. It clearly didn't work with Russia. So why are you even bothering? It's because there's a lot of money to be made. Mike K, happening now. Twitter files, Twitter rigged. I can't say that on YouTube. Okay, we've got a new Twitter files release. Looks like we've got a main video for tomorrow. I will neglect to cover it at this time because we have to get through this other news. The New York Times, of course, next news story. Kwanzaa begins on Monday. Here's a guide to its principles and traditions. Now, I pointed out, of course, if you look at the man who invented Kwanzaa in the 1960s, he was a convicted felon, a violent one. We're not talking he had some crack or something. We're talking apparently abducted several women claiming that they were trying to follow it, stalk him, or screw with him, and, force-fed him bleach and beat him over the head with a toaster and other weird shit. He still claims to have been a political prisoner, but I would like to point out something. Well, several things. First, when you are using Swahili for what you are claiming is a traditional West African holiday, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If you know anything about linguistics. Of course, he doesn't. He was a professor, too, for some time there, I think for like 20 years, which is extremely funny. Kwanzaa, effectively, is nothing more than a mashup of some elements of Christendom, some elements of Judaism, the candles and shit like that, and then some trappings of a Western revisionism of certain Central African traditions. You repackage it, and then you give it to black supremacy groups like the Black Panthers, and you try to make it a thing. I have never met in my entire life, and I've met many, many people. I have met 0 people who practice Kwanzaa. I've spoken with black nationalists. I've spoken with people actually from Africa. Not a single one. There is no audience for Kwanzaa with one exception. People who apparently, I guess, they're nostalgic for the 60s and 70s, like the Black liberation, throw up the fist sort of thing. That's basically the only people that celebrate it. How many people celebrate Kwanzaa? Nobody, effectively. It's not a real holiday. Now, I realize that holidays tend to adapt from one another. And in that sense, like Kwanzaa adopting like Hanukkah-style candle lighting and some of the basic trappings of what you could say is at least revisionist Christian sort of iconography or ideology, rather. That's perfectly fine. You can, do whatever. Festivus is celebrated by hundreds of thousands of people. It's from a fucking Seinfeld episode. That's perfectly fine. But Karanja, I believe his name was, specifically that developed it, was not a nice dude. He was basically attempting to grift, and I think still does. And he still gets named as a top black scholar for some reason. Isn't there going to come a time when people that have actually contributed to something to society are held up on a pedestal instead of people who are just grifters? I think that might be better for the so-called marginalized communities. Instead of celebrating people who they either spent their whole life being abused or they're basically criminals, why not people who are upstanding members of a community? They worked hard. They didn't blame others for their failures. And they succeeded at things. Neurosurgeon or something like that. Why not to make a statue of them instead of a statue of George Floyd? By the way, we've got a new holiday, actually. Kwanzaa is so 1960s. Now we have Schwanza. That's the drunken version. If you ignore the concept of sobriety within most modern religions, you can celebrate Schwanza. This is what Nancy Pelosi has gone with. She's a black nationalist, too, because she's becoming increasingly demented and doesn't really even know what year it is or what her fucking name is. And she gets hammered every single day from morning till night. She probably wakes up with a pint. She's like that rapper that did that fucking video there. He had a song called Drug Addicts, and he did a video with Charlie Sheen. That's basically Nancy Pelosi's life. She's one of the elderly care patients in that video, probably. Keith Denmark. Tim Pool always says, if you have such and such on your bingo card. Let's see, 23 bingo prediction. I'll go first. Aliens discovered, contacted, or invaded. I wouldn't take that bet. Aliens don't give a shit about this planet. Why would they? We're going to destroy ourselves anyway at this rate. So they can just wait until we're gone and then take the gold. Huns with guns. With this obsessive push for drag queens everywhere, it feels like we have entered Weimar territory. Well, the United States actually went through a similar situation in the 1910s and 20s, actually. I wouldn't get too much into the moral panic side of things. I believe that it will be a passing craze. Ozzy's robots. There was a Bill Gates interview where he stated intervention with medicines and jabs has been successful in lowering birth rates, like that's the goal. Well, yeah, I mean, it has been. They've been handing out birth control shots and shit in Africa now for decades. The Gates Foundation has been actively doing that. Sleeping Earthlings. Fox News is the Mitch McConnell of news. Exactly. Situationally, on rare occasions, useful idiot, but still always an idiot. Next news story. We got to rebut Ann Coulter, who we have ratioed, by the way, on Twitter. Now that the algorithm is unfucked, it's really easy to ratio these people. Keep in mind, Ann Coulter supposedly has over 2 million people following her, and yet she's getting ratioed by someone with less than a tenth of her audience size. Could there be shenanigans going on? Ann Coulter, sticking with the TDS, it was turned out by Robert W. Malone, MD. Twitter files, what we've learned so far. Bottom line, federal law enforcement asserted primacy over all media distribution, a situation normally only found in tin pot regimes. I think he means tin horn, but I don't know. That's true. Although it goes further, I mean, technically speaking, he's being reductionist with regards to this. Damning as though that single sentence statement is, it's actually worse than that. Ann Coulter weighed in, because she's crazy. This was done by federal law enforcement under President Donald J. Trump. She just can't let the issue go. And I pointed out, and this is how I ratioed her, I pointed out Donald Trump was even being lied to by his own Syrian envoy about the number of troops on the ground, despite explicitly and constitutionally being the commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces. If some mid-level envoy in a foreign country can lie about the number of troops there to try to prevent Donald Trump from withdrawing too much from the region, do you really think that Donald Trump was getting accurate information in his daily briefings from the goddamn FBI? The same FBI so partisan that it allowed clearly and blatantly false politically manufactured material to go through the FISA process through mid-level FBI agents who openly proclaimed their partisan bias in their own communiques, Strzok and Page, of course, through the FISA court. It gets rubber stamped. It gets rubber stamped again by the deputy AG of the investigation results, and it lasts for years despite the fact that there was literally no merit and any reasonable person understood that. It's been discredited now, but that lasted for years. Do you really think that these same organizations, whether you cry incompetence or you assume malevolence, did not mislead Donald Trump about what was happening? Secondly, and Coulter never explains this because, again, reductionism. Why would Donald Trump weigh on the DOJ or FBI to go after people who are trying to expose his literal political opponent? Because that's really what the Hunter Biden laptop boils down to. Nobody cares about Hunter's dick pics or his Parmesan cheese smoking. They care about the big guy. Why would Donald Trump command a bureau to suppress that story? It makes absolutely no goddamn sense whatsoever. Trump was probably unaware of any of these goings-ons because he was deliberately sabotaged by elements of the bureaucracy because they did not like him. And they did not like him because he didn't play their fucking games. He didn't bribe them. He didn't have anything specifically over them. They cloistered themselves apart from him, and they misled him. We know that this happened. On multiple occasions, we have proof. We have an admission from the goddamn Syrian envoy himself with regards to that story, which, by the way, you may have noticed was never followed through with, not without good reason. The second Biden took control, that story disappeared entirely. Have you heard anything about that particular story? The commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces was deliberately misled by his own appointed envoy to Syria, an active war zone, a conflict zone the U.S. was directly involved with regards to how many people were even there. Yes, Miss Coulter, or whatever. Yes, clearly Donald Trump was at fault for what was happening there. He knew everything that was going. He was totally getting briefed on the FBI censoring U.S. citizens because they were posting Hunter Biden laptop content. Yes, of course that happened. I think that if he had known, he would have told us about it, because it would have been great goddamn political fodder for his re-election campaign. You idiot. E100 Omega 123, happy holidays, Sticks. Pretty bummed out by the Omnibus bill. Feels like another nail in our coffin. Tired of the U.S. being run by criminals. To be clear, pork barrel is not a recent thing. It's been happening since the 19th century in the United States. Technically since our inception, actually. So don't get too black-pilled. It's just getting worse. It's not exactly unheralded. Opinionated Junkie. It's 19 degrees Fahrenheit. So much for global warming. Yeah, when the globe gets warmer, it makes things colder too. This is strange science. Mr. Repurpose, I used to have $10. Now it's gone. Well, thank you for giving it to me. I'll take good care of it. Probably go into coffee, I guess. So yeah, Ann Coulter's gone completely round the bend. There's no other way to put it. The TDS has seeped so far into Coulter's veins that it's incurable at this point. It's basically like HIV. You can suppress it maybe. It'd be really difficult, but maybe you can. But there's no coming back. She's gone across the edge into the dark side and has been completely corrupted for the rest of her miserable life. Richard III sending $5. No comment, thank you. And then we have the final story. This is not political. This is just, I wanted to rant about this because it's terrible. This is from Taste Atlas on Twitter. Which one is your favorite? Full top 95 list. tasteatlas.com/best/cuisines. They did, I guess, a reader survey or some shit like that with regards to, the best cuisine in the world. By nation, although for some reason, in only one case do they split the nation apart. England is considered separately from Scotland, whereas even in nations that have very fractious or expansive different groups of people, different languages, geography, certainly cuisine, they're not split apart. So for some bizarre reason, only England and Scotland were subjected to this. I don't know exactly why. I can't explain it. Now, some of these listings make sense. If you look at a link in the description, you can see it for yourself. Italy being number one, I'll accept that. Italy has exquisite food, not just the common stuff, but the weird stuff too. Greece is number two. Greece has very good cuisine. Spain's number three. Okay, I'll accept that too, especially for squiggly wiggly little things that crawl around in the shoreline waters. Japan, India, Mexico, Turkey, the United States, France, and Peru. Those are the top 10. I'll make an exception for this, although I would like to point out, as far as who has the best food, it kind of depends what you're eating now, doesn't it? If you want a really great barbecue or something, the U.S. is a great place to go. But if you go to New England, a lot of it's going to be kind of bland food. Martha Stewart cooking, really great soup and sandwich culture. You're not going to be able to beat the snacks. There's certainly a lot of French influence, by the way, from Quebec into Vermont especially. That's going to be great. Probably you don't want to get Indian knockoff food in Vermont or in New Hampshire or something like that. If you want something that's herby and olive-y, lots of tomatoes, of course, the Italians are going to kick your ass. You probably don't want to get that if you're in Japan. But if you want sushi, Italian-style sushi probably ain't going to do it for you. And by the way, why is China number 11 on this list? What's China mainly known for as far as its actual domestically consumed food? Gutter oil, street food. Yeah, okay, it's great. Fried shit. You can get that literally anywhere in the world. Chinese cuisine should not be at number 11 on this list. By the way, why is it that England is ahead of Thailand on this list? That's probably the greatest sin here. England is at number 29. Thailand's at number 30. It manages to edge out Denmark. Have you had Danish food? It's delicious. Lebanon? England ahead of Lebanon? Lebanese food is not as good as English food. Okay, I think that we can pretty much end it now. Syria, Bangladesh. Why is it that India would be number 5 and Bangladesh, which is effectively nothing more than a swampy East Indian suburb, would be down at number 43? You're trying to tell me the number of problems here is sheer. You've got Vietnam at number 20, but you've got Croatia at number 17. Now, no offense to any Croatian viewers. I've seen some of the cuisine because I really like to look at recipes and shit, even if I don't cook them, at the time. Croatian food does look good, but I'm sorry. As a lemongrass fan, as a fan of that style of food, I'm going to put the Vietnamese above you. Just saying. South Korea at number 19, same thing. The Philippines, for some inexplicable reason, are below Romania. And the Ukrainians are at number 41. I think this might be for political reasons, but if you go into the full list, Russia's way down at like 55 or something. Now, can anyone please explain to me, as far as day-to-day style food, what's the difference between people in at least like the white Russian, like the European Russian zone, and Ukraine? There's not a huge difference. There's very similar styles of cuisine. The same would be true of many of these other countries here. Poland is slightly ahead of Germany. Again, there's a similarity in certain styles of cuisine, at least along the border regions. Pakistan's at number 47. Somehow they got beaten out by Lithuania. Pakistani food is delicious. What are you talking about? Egypt, where's Egypt on this list? I think they were near the top somewhere. I'm not seeing them on here, but I know that they were in the top 50 on the main list. So Tunisian food at 48. Yes, clearly people from the Czech Republic make much better food than Tunisians do. I mean, you got to be fucking shitting me with this. Now, I don't know if this was a popular poll and it's sort of semi-reflective of who was polled, or whether they screwed with the numbers or something like that. By the way, even the United States being at number 8. I will absolutely simp for U.S. food if you're talking about like a native Texan food like Tex-Mex, if you're talking about like a Brooklyn pizza, like an Italian fusion sort of thing. If you're talking about the Asian influence in some food that's on the coast of like California or something, French influence in Vermont, Germanic and Dutch influenced foods, Pennsylvania, etc. Scandinavian influenced traditions in the Upper Lakes region, Minnesota, Wisconsin, etc. There, Cuban influence. Cuba is like at number 70 on here. How can you possibly justify Cuba being behind Denmark? Cuba should be arguably at least in the top 20 here. Have you tasted Cuban food? A lot of influence into the U.S. The U.S., though, overall, as far as the average diet, it really is. There are a lot of burgers. Some of them are really, really great, I'm sure. Not exactly healthy. But it's not really on the same order as sashimi, now is it? It's really not on the same order as the Italian dinner that grandmama cooked or something like that. The real boon of the United States is that it absorbed all of these other cultures, and there are enclaves cooking literally everything you can find. There's probably a North Korean restaurant somewhere in the United States selling mulch smoothies at this point. I'm sure the hipsters, by the way, will love it. It's a diet food. That's the advantage of the U.S. But if you're constraining it to natively Americana cuisine, so somebody came in the 1600s and their lineage has been making food a certain way, you're getting Townsend's food. You're getting like revolutionary stuff. Yeah, it's absolutely great, but I don't know that it rises to number 8 on the list. And a lot of it would be similar to English food. The U.S. invents lots of stuff. Most of the time, it is at least somewhat influenced by a foreign culture, because most of the people in the United States, you go back 5 or 6 generations, a lot of it's Homestead Act. That's the way that it works. But this list, I mean, it's off the wall. It's one of the craziest things I've ever seen, and it's not even political. By the way, please don't send any more super chats. I've got other things I have to do. Deadly Raver, old poodle face Coulter has lost it. She had one good one when she predicted Trump's win and then gave in to the hate. So sad. She ran afoul of what I warned of in 2016, was that if you're assuming that Trump's going to come in like a dictator, solve all your problems, make everything better, and do it single-handedly without any aversion from Congress, SCOTUS, the Constitution, etc., you are fooling yourselves. If you wanted a mild first-term Reagan-style reformer who would improve things, although not perfect them, who would make the first inroads into taking our country back, although not be able to do so fully himself, even with a full second consecutive term, Trump was your man. That's why I will vote for him again if he's the nominee. If he's not, and I feel that there were any shenanigans, I will not support the Republican Party. It's as simple as that. She's just a unipartyist at this point. She knows what side her bread is buttered on. Teresa Logue Meeks, Sticks, thanks for a year of great content. We enjoy your videos very much, especially the gardening and silly 2-second ones where you're just goofing off. Yes, the raid videos. I should do more of those. I will be back at gardening probably this growing season, by the way. FB, Razor Fist appearing on perennial neocon grifter Sebastian Gorka's show was mildly disappointing. Thoughts? I don't have any problem with Gorka. Certainly don't have a problem with Razor Fist. I haven't seen the appearance, though. I'd have to see what they banted about. Opinionated Junkie, U.S. makes good barbecue sauce. Oh yeah, the United States is flush with great food. But much of it traditionally is just an adaptation from some other country, including the modern stuff. Let's be clear. Let's be reasonable about this. Great food. It's everywhere in the United States. A lot of it is not. It wasn't homegrown in the middle of the continental North American region. You can get pretty much anything in a U.S. urban area. It's different from most parts of the world. Here, it's also cosmopolitan. In Amsterdam, you can get pretty much anything there, too. City the size of Boston, huge immigrant population. You can get Moroccan food, Japanese food, Chinese food, Syrian food, French. You can get anything that you want. But that being said, the fact that you have all that great food doesn't make it Dutch, now does it? Richard III, the average birth rate in Africa is 8 kids, I believe. A lot can barely take care of one. So doesn't birth control shots make sense? Yeah, family planning is important for parts of the impoverished world, although I think that depends on the country. I'm pretty sure that that's more like the really deep, almost sub-third world, like Malawi or Rwanda or something like that. But then again, when 6 of your kids die during infancy, making 8 kids kind of makes sense now, doesn't it? Isaac Desmoro, I wish you streamed Christmas sticks. Love you and the content. Thank you. Sparky, I remember when the only decent thing to eat in England was fish and chips. England was famous for sucking at cuisine. Yes, what was the old saying? Baked, broiled, and bland, I believe that it was. Although a full English does look comfy. It looks like it might give you heartburn or something. Philip Young, clanking from Canada here, living in Castro land. I'm spitting out black pills daily. Just wanted to thank you for the daily dose of castor oil. Clank. Yes, clank it up. I don't have a spoon to clank at the moment. I've got my lemon water. Don't want scurvy. Yeah. I would put lime in it preferentially, but I forgot to buy limes. Somebody mentioned, yes, Mr. Wonderful, Indian garlic naan bread. Wow, wow, wow. Yes, naan bread is good. It's even good when you get it pre-made. I can make Indian food, by the way, and authentic Mexican food. And I will tell you this, I think that the Mexicans can give the Spaniards a run for their money. Sparky, U.S. brings the best out of many different countries' food. Yeah, as far as cuisine goes, I am definitely a progressive. Blanda it up, experiment, make whatever the fuck you want. Whatever hipster shit you want to make, somebody will find it tasty. Maybe it takes off. I will allow for an extreme progressive and cosmopolitan view when it comes to food, and I will try just about anything once. Hell, here they have like tongue meat. I find it delicious. Liz practically vomits when I eat it. I want to go to the weird places in the world and eat everything that like a Westerner, especially one from bland New England, would find to be strange. I want to go to Africa. I want to go to Brazil. I want to eat like caterpillars and shit like that. Oh, Santos. Found a song by Styx Hexenhammer. You don't know how it feels to be me. Is this you? Yes, I covered a Tom Petty song, actually. That was shortly after Tom Petty croaked, and I decided to do that in remembrance of him, and people thought it was good. So, Victoria Winter, Pacific Coast Injuns, smoked salmon. Smoked salmon is good. So another one, Israeli food is good. Have you had like lox on bagels typically with extra dill? Matzo soup, I actually had it once. UVM, they did Passover food, kosher food for Jewish students. And I got it, and I was like, oh, haha, that sounds kind of fun. Thought it was pretty good, actually. Not sure exactly how it's made, though. Ozzy's Robots, speaking of food, did you see the first fully automated McDonald's open in Fort Worth, Texas? So long, $15 minimum wage. The rees are deafening. Yeah, they were trying to deflect by saying the minimum wage there was lower, as though that's some sort of own. Okay, if they're willing to introduce it there where the minimum wage is $5 lower, how much more in California or something like that? Hair Juicer 3000. Have you tried Ethiopian food? I'm convinced there was never a famine. Just millions of people saying it's good, Mom. I'm just not hungry. I've never seen it, actually. And I do have to go offline here because the baby is coming downstairs. I think she might have pooped or something like that. I hope that you enjoyed the ramble, especially about various food. I've got one more, and then I'll go off. Rel 21,000 on Rumble. Here's my rant on your comment about not sending any more super chats today. Interesting. I still, by the way, cannot see how many people were tuning in live on Rumble. I'm hoping they didn't remove the feature because it's helpful to me as a content creator. So yeah, go through that list and you can respond over on Twitter. There's a live tweet over there too on what you think about their food listings, because that got me more than any of the political news of the day. It's just a goddamn tragedy. That's about all.